They say guilt is the heaviest chain a man can wear. Lee Mun-Ho wore his like armor, cold and impenetrable, for 2 years after his brother's murder. Then he walked into a trafficking auction in Busan and saw the one face that could shatter everything he'd built to forget. His dead brother's fiancée. And the men who took her. They had no idea they'd just signed their death sentence. The underground warehouse reeked of sweat and desperation. Lee Mun-Ho stood in the shadows, watching women being paraded on a makeshift stage while men in expensive suits placed bids like they were buying livestock. His jaw clenched. This wasn't business. This was a violation of every rule he'd fought to establish. 48 hours earlier, Mun-Ho's second-in-command had brought him intel that made his blood run cold. A rival gang was running a trafficking operation in Busan. Women disappearing from subway stations, hagwons, clubs. It was a direct violation of the truce he'd negotiated 2 years ago after his brother Jin-Woo's death. No human trafficking. No drugs near schools. No civilian casualties. Those were his rules. The rules that cost him everything to enforce. Mun-Ho decided to handle this personally. Not because he cared about sending a message, but because some violations required a reckoning. His men prepared for the raid while he prepared for war. He wore a black suit, no tie, his face a mask of controlled fury. The kind of fury that had kept him alive and kept Seoul's underworld in fragile peace for 2 years. The warehouse was in an industrial district near the port, the kind of place where screams got swallowed by the sound of ships and machinery. Mun-Ho entered alone, his men stationed at every exit. Inside, the auction was already underway. Red lighting, smoke, the sound of lewd laughter and greedy bidding. He stood at the back, counting faces, memorizing everyone who would need to answer for this. The auctioneer, a man with gold teeth and a voice like gravel, pulled another woman onto the stage. She stumbled, thin and terrified, her eyes downcast. The crowd leaned forward. Bids started flying. Mun-Ho watched with clinical detachment, waiting for the right moment to shut this down permanently. Then she walked onto the stage. Time stopped. Mun-Ho's breath caught in his throat. The woman was thinner than he remembered, her hair shorter, her eyes hollow with trauma. But there was no mistaking her. Tariro. The Zimbabwean woman who flew to Seoul with a wedding dress in her suitcase and dreams in her eyes. The woman who stood at Jin-Woo's funeral with tears streaming down her face while Mun-Ho stood frozen, unable to comfort her because he couldn't even comfort himself. His brother's fiancée. The auctioneer was talking, listing her qualities like she was merchandise. English speaker. Well-educated. Exotic. The words barely registered. All Mun-Ho could see was Tariro's face, blank and dissociated, like she'd retreated somewhere inside herself to survive. All he could feel was rage, pure and incandescent, burning through the ice he'd wrapped around his heart. He didn't wait for strategy. Didn't signal his men. Didn't think. He walked straight through the crowd, his presence parting bodies like a knife through silk. Men turned, recognized him, went silent. By the time he reached the front, the entire warehouse had gone quiet. Mine, he said. One word. Final. The auctioneer stuttered. Sir, the bidding hasn't. Mun-Ho looked at him. Just looked. The men went pale. She's not for sale anymore, Mun-Ho said quietly. None of them are. He pulled out a stack of cash, dropped it on the table without counting. Then he walked onto the stage, took off his jacket, and draped it over Tariro's shoulders. She didn't react. Didn't even look at him. He guided her down the steps, his hand barely touching her elbow, and walked her toward the exit. Behind them, chaos erupted. His men moved in. There were shouts, gunfire, the sound of bodies hitting concrete. Mun-Ho didn't look back. He kept walking, keeping Tariro steady, until they reached his car. He opened the back door, helped her inside, then slid in beside her. His driver pulled away as the warehouse lit up with muzzle flashes. The drive to his safehouse was silent. Tariro sat pressed against the far door, staring out the window at nothing. Mun-Ho didn't speak. What could he say? That he was sorry. That he should have found her sooner. That seeing her on that stage had broken something in him he didn't know could still break. The safehouse was a luxury apartment in Gangnam, a place he kept for emergencies. Clean, anonymous, safe. He led her inside, showed her the bedroom, the bathroom. Laid out clean clothes on the bed. Towels. Soap. Everything she might need. "Take your time," he said, his voice rough. "You're safe now." She still hadn't looked at him. Hadn't said a word. She just walked into the bathroom and closed the door. Mun-Ho stood there for a long moment, then left, closing the bedroom door behind him. He went to the living room, poured himself a drink he didn't taste, and stared out at the Seoul skyline while his hands shook with adrenaline and rage and guilt. An hour passed. Then another. Finally, the bedroom door opened. Tariro emerged wearing the clothes he'd left, her hair damp, her face scrubbed clean. And for the first time, she looked at him. Really looked at him. Her eyes widened. Mun-Ho Appa. The word, that familiar term Jin-Woo had taught her, shattered him. She stumbled forward, and he caught her as she broke down, great heaving sobs that seemed to tear out of her chest. He held her stiffly at first, then tighter, feeling her shake against him while 2 years of frozen grief threatened to crack open his own chest. When she finally pulled back, her face was red and swollen. "Did Jin-Woo send you?" Mun-Ho's heart stopped. "Tariro. He promised he'd come. He promised." Her voice was small, broken. "Is he here? Is he coming?" "Jin-Woo is gone." The words felt like swallowing glass. "He's been gone for 2 years. You know that. You were at the funeral." She stared at him, confused, then her face crumpled. "I know. I know. I just. Sometimes I forget. Sometimes I think maybe it was a dream, maybe he's still here, maybe." She covered her face with her hands. "Why didn't you find me sooner? 3 months I waited. 3 months in that place. Where were you?" "I didn't know." Mun-Ho's voice cracked. "After the funeral, you disappeared. I thought you went back to Zimbabwe. I thought you couldn't face being here without him. I never knew you stayed. I never knew they took you. I couldn't leave." Tariro looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. Everything Jin-Woo wanted was here. His dreams, his plans. "I thought if I stayed, I could keep him alive somehow. So I got a job teaching English at a hagwon. I was doing okay. And then 3 months ago, I was coming home from work, and men grabbed me at the subway station. They put something over my face, and when I woke up, I was in a room with other women. They moved us every few days. Different cities, different rooms. And then tonight, they put me on that stage." Mun-Ho felt sick. While he'd been drowning in guilt and rage, shutting out the world, she'd been suffering. Another person he'd failed. Another person Jin-Woo had loved that he couldn't protect. "The men who killed Jin-Woo," Tariro said quietly. "Do you know who they were?" "Yes. And they're dead. All of them. I made sure of it." "Then why do you still look so angry?" Mun-Ho met her eyes. "Because killing them didn't bring him back. And now I find you, and I couldn't even protect you either. He asked me to take care of you if anything happened to him. And I failed. I failed him. I failed you. You didn't know. I should have known. I should have checked. I should have." "Stop." Tariro's voice was firm. "Jin-Woo wouldn't want this. You drowning in guilt, punishing yourself forever. He'd want you to live. I don't know how to do that anymore." They sat in silence, the weight of grief and trauma and 2 years of separate suffering filling the space between them. Finally, Tariro spoke again, softer. "What happens now? Now I arrange everything. New documents, money, a safe flight back to Harare. I'll set you up, make sure you're taken care of for life. You can go home, leave all of this behind. And if I don't want to go?" Mun-Ho looked at her sharply. "You can't stay here. It's not safe. I wasn't safe before either. But I'm not running anymore. I'm tired of running. I'm tired of being afraid. Tariro. I need time. That's all. Just time to figure out what I want. Can you give me that? He wanted to argue. Wanted to put her on a plane and know she was far away from this world, far away from him and the danger that followed him like a shadow. But he saw the determination in her eyes, the strength that trauma hadn't quite broken, and he nodded. Okay. But you stay here. Where I know you're safe. Days passed. Mun-Ho came by daily, bringing food, supplies, updates on the trafficking network he was systematically destroying. Tariro stayed in the safehouse, slowly coming back to herself. She started cooking, surprising him one evening with Zimbabwean food, sadza, and nyama that filled the apartment with unfamiliar spices. Jin-Woo used to talk about your cooking, Mun-Ho said, tasting it carefully. He said it was like tasting happiness. He was dramatic like that. A small smile crossed her face. He'd come into my kitchen in Harare when I visited my parents, steal bites while I cooked, and tell me stories about Seoul. About you. About how his big brother was scary to everyone except him. He exaggerated. Did he? He said you never smiled. But he also said when you did, it could light up a room. Was that an exaggeration? Jin-Woo was a liar. Prove it. Mun-Ho almost smiled. Almost. The muscles of his face felt strange, and used to the gesture. Tariro noticed, and her own smile grew. See. There it is. Jin-Woo was right. Something shifted between them in that moment. Something neither of them could name or wanted to acknowledge. She was his brother's fiancée. He was a criminal who'd failed to protect her. It was wrong. Impossible. But when she looked at him, she didn't see a monster. She saw someone suffering, just like her. And when he looked at her, he didn't see Jin-Woo's ghost. He saw someone fighting to survive, to reclaim her life, to not let trauma define her. Late one night, both unable to sleep, they sat on opposite ends of the couch. Tariro told him stories about Zimbabwe, about growing up in Harare, about her family. Mun-Ho listened, letting her voice wash over him, feeling something frozen inside him start to thaw. When she asked about Jin-Woo's childhood, he found himself talking. Actually talking. About their father who died when they were young. About raising Jin-Woo himself, trying to keep him away from the family business. About failing. He chose this life, Tariro said gently. You didn't force him. I could have tried harder. You could have done everything perfectly, and he still might have died. That's the truth you don't want to face. That sometimes, we can do everything right and still lose everything. Mun-Ho looked at her, this woman who'd survived horrors he couldn't imagine, who'd lost the men she loved, who'd been stolen and sold, and was somehow still here, still fighting. How are you not broken? Who says I'm not? She met his eyes. I'm shattered, Mun-Ho. But I'm still here. And so are you. That has to count for something. 2 weeks after he found her, Mun-Ho's enemies made their move. They'd learned he'd bought a woman at the auction. Saw it as weakness, as attachment, as an opportunity. They attacked the safehouse at 3 in the morning. But Mun-Ho had been waiting. He'd known they'd come. Had prepared for it. Had stationed his best men around the building. The fight was brutal and efficient. Mun-Ho moved through attackers like a force of nature, protecting Tariro with everything he had. This time he wouldn't fail. This time, no one he cared about would die. When it was over, 5 men lay dead, and the message was sent. Touch her, and there would be no mercy. In the aftermath, with Tariro shaking but unharmed in the bedroom, Mun-Ho made his decision. He sat her down, took her hands in his, and said the words that killed him. You have to leave Korea. Go back to Zimbabwe. I'll set you up, make sure you're safe, but you can't stay here. Everyone I love dies. I can't let that happen to you. Tariro pulled her hands back. So you're deciding for me? Just like that. I'm keeping you alive. You're keeping yourself safe from feeling anything. Her eyes blazed. Jin-Woo told me about you. How you shut down after your father died. How you built walls so high nobody could reach you. And now you're doing it again. Pushing me away because it's easier than risking your heart. My heart. Mun-Ho's voice rose. My heart got my brother killed. My heart is what made me weak enough that they knew how to hurt me. I won't make that mistake again. Then you're already dead. You're just still breathing. The words hit like a bullet. Mun-Ho stared at her, and she stared back, refusing to break. Jin-Woo believed you could be more than this, she said quietly. So do I. But I can't force you to believe it yourself. She stood up. I'll go. But not because you're making me. Because I need to heal somewhere that isn't shadowed by ghosts. Mine or yours. She left 3 days later. Mun-Ho took her to the airport, gave her an envelope with enough money to live comfortably for years, and watched her walk through security without looking back. He told himself it was the right choice. The safe choice. The only choice. He went back to his life, to his business, to the cold efficiency that had kept him alive this long. But something was different now. The ice had cracked, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't refreeze it. 6 months later, he got a text. A flight number. An arrival time. Nothing else. He told himself not to go to the airport. Told himself it was better to let her move on. Told himself he had nothing to offer her but danger and pain. But when the time came, he was there anyway, standing in arrivals, watching passengers stream through. Then he saw her. Tariro, walking toward him with a small suitcase and a determined expression. She stopped in front of him. You came back, he said. I told you. I'm not running anymore. This world, my life, it's dangerous. I know. I'm choosing it anyway. I'm choosing you. If you'll have me. Mun-Ho looked at her, this incredible woman who'd survived everything, who'd chosen to come back despite knowing exactly what she was walking into. And for the first time in 2 years, he smiled. Actually smiled. The kind of smile Jin-Woo always said could light up a room. He would have approved, Mun-Ho said quietly. Jin-Woo. He would have wanted this. Wanted us both to be happy. I know, Tariro said. That's why I came back. Sometimes healing doesn't mean forgetting the ones we lost. It means honoring them by letting ourselves live again. Lee Mun-Ho saved Tariro from traffickers. But she saved him from something worse, a life frozen in guilt, unable to move forward. And maybe that's what his brother wanted all along. Not revenge. Not perfection. Just his older brother learning to smile again. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Have you ever had to choose between protecting someone and letting them make their own choices? Let us know. And if you believe in second chances and healing, smash that like button. Because sometimes the bravest thing we can do is let ourselves feel again.